It's round 7 of the Formula One World Championship, but the Monaco Grand Prix, especially when it's bathed in Mediterranean sunshine, is a great deal more than that. Your commentators for the most famous race on the Formula One calendar, Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a track which needs no introduction and a race that every Grand Prix driver would give their eye teeth to win. Looking down on this sun-kissed harbour, all the beautiful people tucked on their boats, hanging out of flats as well, a sellout in the grandstands, capacity crowd here. No one's really quite sure what a capacity crowd is in Monte Carlo, but it's certainly a heck of a lot of people. There's the lap of honour of the circuit by His Serene Highness Prince Albert, who assumed the throne after the death last year, of course, of Prince Rainier. And Max Mosley, the FIA president, appears to be in the passenger seat with him. Well, it seems odd that Michael Schumacher should choose this moment of his career to remind us all of the bad things he has done in the past, the collisions with, amongst others, Damon Hill at Adelaide and Jacques Villeneuve at Jerez and so on. But the stewards here were damning. He deliberately stopped his car to block the track and save his pole position, and for that he was moved to the back of the grid. What a stain on his character. 7 times a world champion, 86 times a Grand Prix winner. His legacy as Formula One's greatest driver statistically is assured. So why did he do it? Was it the pressure from a younger driver? This man, Fernando Alonso, the man who so resembles Schumacher at the same age, 24 years old. Aggressive, fast, committed and relentless. The pressure from this man, Kimi Raikkonen, not quite on the boil so far this championship, but looking very, very good here in Monte Carlo and fastest in the first 2 qualifying sessions yesterday. Certainly it was with the news that Alonso was on a hot lap that Michael Schumacher stopped his car out at the Rascasse Bend and started a process which ended 7 hours later in the steward's room, and the decision that he would have to go to the back of the grid. They decided he had stopped other drivers from improving their qualifying times. There he is then, under a little bit of a cloud. He will start this race from the pit lane, as Martin Brundle was telling us. And let's have a look at the grid that's left without him. Mark Webber at the front, one of 4 hungry young men at the front. Alonso, Webber, Raikkonen and Montoya. Webber certainly looking for a decent result. He's well and truly overdue one with the Williams team. He's been on for a podium several times this season, but the car's let him down. Montoya living a little bit in Raikkonen's shadow at the moment. Raikkonen desperate for another victory here to go with the one he won last year. Barrichello again outperforming his teammate. Jarno Trulli, the Toyotas looked terrible this weekend, but he managed to get it up into the top 10, as did Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard looking very, very strong here this weekend. Jenson Button, well, we heard from his interview with Steve how disappointed he is to be down in 13th place in the Honda. With so much promise going into this season, and if anything, it's not going at all well for Jenson Button in qualifying. The last 3 Grand Prix he's been outperformed by his teammate. And at the very back you see Felipe Massa behind the 2 Super Aguris, Michael Schumacher starting from the pit lane. Well, Jarno Trulli, who won this race back in 2004, Martin, says this is an easier race to lose than it is to win. And certainly everybody will be very interested in how Mark Webber's tyres perform. He's the only Bridgestone runner up in the front 4. The degradation on those Bridgestones seemed to be more acute in the long runs of the free practice. So that's certainly a big pressure point for McLaren. They do have to get past Webber early on, don't they?
Yes, I think it may well be, I don't want to do them down, but in terms of raw race pace, it may well be what's going on behind Webber rather than what's going on in front of him in terms of Alonso. The one sad thing about not having Michael Schumacher up on the front row of the grid is we're denied that classic scrap this afternoon. But it'll be interesting to see how far Michael Schumacher can get as the race unfolds. It's going to be a very, very long afternoon. And Trudy's right, it's so easy. I think I've raced it 14 times or something. It's so easy to make a silly error, to look a fool, and you're absolutely destroyed because it's a manic, never-ending lap that just seems to wind. The race just winds up and up and up, and as the track comes to you, you get a confidence and you feel brilliant, and all of a sudden, in a heartbeat, it's all over and you're stepping out of the car, and it's just such a weird feeling. And they've obviously, if you want some points today, though, as ever, you've got to keep it away from the wall, but easier said than done.
Tell us what it feels like then to be sitting in the cockpit of a Formula One car. You've avoided all the temptations of Monaco all weekend. You've not had too many invitations to go on the boats, or you've had them, but you've turned them all down. All the sort of girls in heels have been asking for your attention. You've turned all that away. You've concentrated on your job. You're now sitting in a Formula One car, about to do what all the great drivers in the history of the sport have done, stretching right back to the Nuvolari era in the 20s. You're one of 22 chosen ones on this special day. How does that feel?
It feels brilliant, and especially right now, actually, because it's the first time the cars have all been on the grid together. You can't see any of the other drivers. There are so many people. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people wandering around that grid, and suddenly they're all shuffled off, and you can then see the race, your competitors, and an open racetrack for the first time, and it is really a special feeling. But really your work is done on a Saturday afternoon here, and then it's a question of maximising or minimising the pain on the Sunday. But this is a very privileged feeling to be driving around these streets in a thoroughbred Formula One car.
Look at the Constructors' Championship situation. Renault clear of Ferrari, and judging by the relative positions of the two Renaults and the two Ferraris today, that's unlikely to change much, apart from in Renault's favour. Some big boats in the harbour here. Kimi Raikkonen has chartered one called One Montoya. One Montoya's new boat, €4 million, just under £3 million, arrived just in time for this race. It's got two 2,000 horsepower engines on it. It's also got his wife and his young son Sebastian, a huge number of Colombians having a great time. Here's one guy who's not having a great time though. What he did yesterday has certainly overshadowed the build-up to this Grand Prix. Let's hope that the Grand Prix itself steps up and overshadows that, and a great spectacle hopefully in store.
I actually caught myself on the scooter coming in this morning, caught myself wondering if Michael Schumacher would even turn up today, whether the events of yesterday would upset him so much that he'd go like, I tell you what, I don't need you either. But he is here, and I'm sure he'll be giving it plenty.
Yeah, I think he's a bit sad about some of the things that some people have said, particularly one or two of the ex-champions. Keke Rosberg was incredibly hard on him yesterday, very publicly in the media, on television, in the newspapers this morning. One or two other people as well have been very, very tough on him. And well, you certainly find out who your friends and enemies are at a time like this. Certainly it's a little bit sad for him, but there's a race now to focus on. So
they've pumped as much heat into the brakes as they can, so that core temperature transmits into the wheel rim, anything to keep up pressure and temperature so they can get a good start and have brakes when they get into the first corner, and enough front grip to do something with that braking power.
The grid, of course, on a bend here. They have a second set of lights for the cars at the back to see, so they can make their starts. Seems like quite a long hold before they put the red lights on. Here we go then, 78 laps of the Monaco Grand Prix. Go! Webber comes across defensively to cover Raikkonen, who saw that coming. He went round the outside of Webber. Who's going to come out of Sandoval in front? Raikkonen just about gets in front of his teammate Montoya, but Webber was brave on the inside. The two McLarens follow through. There is Michael Schumacher. He's going to chase after a few Super Aguris and Midlands. Looks like teammate Massa is tangling up with one of the Midlands as well. As we go into Casino Square, the leader is already down at the Mirabeau.
Yeah, having just covered the line on the inside, you can launch an attack down there under braking, but the guy you're overtaking needs to be aware that you're... And look at that, Michael Schumacher goes around the outside of Felipe Massa into Mirabeau. Now he's going to poke it down the inside of a Super Aguri. That's two dispatched straight away. The Super Aguri fast asleep.
On the rundown Avenue, President Kent. Alonso leading Raikkonen by half a second. Webber falling back on that last lap a little bit.
He's forming behind Rubens Barrichello. Because, Webber went wide in Sandoval. That's a replay. Webber actually got in too hot, ran wide, and well, it is so unusual to see clear enough performance to overtake another Formula One car in what is really just one line up there, on board with Michael Schumacher behind Jenson Button. But that was the reason for that pass there. But Webber's hanging on time-wise. The top four are all within a tenth of a second, and then Barrichello is a full 1.5 seconds a lap slower. Almost certainly I would have thought on a one-stopper, and that means he's going to have a big queue behind him.
Well, Schumacher will have put as much fuel into the car as it will hold before he came out of the pit lane, and that's the tactic, to go as long as possible. Hope that cars in front of you will pit before you. But as Jenson Button was telling Steve in the build-up to the show, everybody that was outside the top 10 basically has a free choice of strategy, and so they will all have filled it to the maximum. How far is that? Well, anything up to about 47, 48 laps.
Classic.
Just looking down on the battle between Jenson Button and Michael Schumacher for 15th place. Listening to the Ferrari engine. Only 50% full throttle here at Monaco, the lowest of the year.
Michael's, when you see him emerge from the tunnel, his right front tyre's not looking entirely happy, nor is the left, actually. It's a lot of it's pickup, where you're picking up rubbish if you're slightly offline, picking up other balls of rubber, but the front Bridgestones on that Ferrari not looking particularly good. Mind you, up front, Webber on Bridgestones was fastest man on the track last time around by a good 0.3 of a second, so he's going just fine. It's yo-yoing around, actually. Webber's dropped Montoya as well a little bit.
Yeah, he has, you're absolutely right. Montoya now over at the moment in 5th place. 19 seconds behind Montoya as Renault get ready for Giancarlo Fisichella, who's in 7th at the moment.
Webber just 2.3 seconds behind Raikkonen now, and a half second a lap faster. He's now the fastest man on the track as Raikkonen's held up behind Alonso. Alonso doesn't like this set of tyres, certainly in the early part of the stint. There is the traffic jam that contains Villeneuve, then Michael Schumacher, and the recently pitted Rosberg. We're on board the front wing of Fisichella, and he's going to go right back to 15th or so in a similar position to Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, it certainly cost Rosberg, didn't it? Coming out into all that traffic behind Michael Schumacher in 15th place. Was it going to put Fisichella when he rejoins? There's the crowd. Ralf Schumacher, Liuzzi, Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher. From the looks of things, and it seems to be working so far for them. Trulli 7th then for Toyota, 10th Ralf Schumacher. Into the pits from 6th place comes David Coulthard. I imagine a very frustrated David Coulthard. Superman overalls on all the mechanics. Team promoting the movie this weekend. Newish centre-looking set of tyres going on David's car. This will be his only stop of the afternoon. 12 seconds stationary time should take him through to the finish.
Well, if they have converted that to a one-stopper, I'm not sure about that, James, but if they have, then that'll bring Coulthard hopefully back into play. Look at the gaggle he's ended up behind, but he comes in front of Michael Schumacher, just behind Jacques Villeneuve.
Lap 31 of the Monaco Grand Prix, not even at half.
Cars that the two stoppers out of position have been put back into, and he just butts in front of Michael Schumacher. Schumacher spun last year, if you remember, or hit DC up the back and took him out of the Grand Prix, so a little bit of satisfaction and retribution there for 89.
Yeah, they're just a lap down at the moment, the last place cars. It's very unusual that normally it's a high attrition race. There's a couple of years ago, 2004, only 10 cars finished this Grand Prix, and last year there were only 14 finishers. Normally 1 or 2 in the wall, normally a safety car or 2 as well. Certainly the standard of driving's been high. Here's Fisichella. That's David Coulthard in front of us as we look at a beautiful low-level shot coming down towards the Rascasse corner. 40 miles an hour here, up the hill to the corner, named after the man who invented this race, Anthony Noakes, back in 1929. And then down the start-finish straight.
By the leaders, this is the traffic jam we were talking about. Is this the moment where Raikkonen is locked up? Alonso makes it through the chicane. Or was that Fisichella having a go? Was that Fizzy has got past almost by default. He got in there so hot and steamed through past Coulthard, and it's Alonso, the leader, next. I wonder if David Coulthard thought it was the other Renault.
Undoubtedly he did, and undoubtedly the Renault team said, take advantage of the fact that Coulthard will be looking in his mirrors for a Renault.
Get down the inside and hoping and praying he can stop it when he gets there into that chicane. But it's been pretty painless, hasn't it? He's made it through.
And Mark Webber lost 2 seconds on that lap, getting past David Coulthard and others. That was an incredibly expensive lap for Mark Webber. He is now almost 3 seconds behind the race leaders. Not good at all for him. Montoya, he is almost 2.5 seconds behind Webber. This bunch of traffic
not really. It'll be too brave from there, chap. And now he's going to have to start thinking about blue flags and moving over.
Looking back from the Toro Rosso of Liuzzi, the cars look pretty good this weekend, has to be said, in free practice. Liuzzi getting the car working quite well in the qualifying sessions as well. Clean pits from 7th place. And how long before?
He ducks inside, and some smoky stuff coming out of the back there. Oh dear. Engine problem, surely. Clanking away. That is the end of a great drive, a great performance for Mark Webber and the Williams Cosworth, and that sums it up.
A very, very, very angry man. The car is on fire. The marshal's running down. Safety car is standing by. The car is on the exit of the pit lane. You can see the yellow line there. That's the end of the pit lane exit. So they need to get a crank on that. Safety car deployed. Hey. Now, Alonso was leading Raikkonen by 0.8 of a second. Whoever we've seen drop out, Montoya is the big beneficiary here. He's going to be right on the back of his teammate, having been 12 seconds behind him before the safety car.
Right, the safety car look.
Who is leading? Which position am I? Is David Coulthard a place behind me?
Live in Monte Carlo on lap 51, and the man who was in 2nd place, Kimi Raikkonen, is pulling off the racetrack. We've just seen Mark Webber, who was in 3rd, pull off the racetrack with smoke pouring out of the airbox, indicating the engine had failed. We're under a safety car here while they clear Mark Webber's car out of the way, and Raikkonen's car too is on fire. So we've lost the 2nd and 3rd place man in this race. And, well, Raikkonen's chances of winning it were spoiled when the safety car was deployed, because he had a few more laps of fuel in the car than Alonso, so he would have been able to go a bit further in this Grand Prix. The safety car kiboshed that because both of them had to come in immediately and make a pit stop under the safety car. It was the only thing to do in order not to lose time and track position. And now Raikkonen is out of this Grand Prix when he was looking set for certainly a chance to win it at one point.
Disaster. What's happening there is obviously the car was running pretty close to its maximum temperatures in racing conditions. Slow down, stop the air going through the side pods and the radiators. There are no fans on these cars. They need the cooling air of running at reasonable speed. They hate cruising around, and that's just tripped it over the top. I suspect, anyway, that's what's happened to Raikkonen. It's the slow running that's actually broken the engine. It's overheated.
Well, he's had his fair share of mechanical failures, Kimi Raikkonen, at the wheel of a McLaren Mercedes. Some of them have cost him, by the team's own admission, chance of winning the World Championship. He'd already pretty much given up on challenging for this year's World Championship, but his chances of winning Monaco were pretty strong. And it looks like yet another mechanical failure and a long walk back through the tunnel. That's a good 20 to 25 minutes to the paddock from there. Plenty of time to have some thoughts about what you do about this situation. Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, and his race had already been ruined, hadn't it, James? Because he was going to go longer in that middle stint, and the safety car just wiped out the advantage that Kimi Raikkonen and McLaren had. Here, the circuit that they so wanted to win. But you're absolutely right about the cooling, Martin. McLaren had actually put massive chimneys on the side of their radiators, as had Williams, as had most of the other teams. Things that you usually see in Malaysia and Bahrain, but they put them on here because all of the cooling was just so tight.
Yeah, you need the power of the engine coming out at the end of the crankshaft into the gearbox, not going into the radiators. Obviously some of it's going to go there and noise out of the exhaust pipe, but then quite clearly they're on the limit there. Remember when Senna crashed in that corner, he actually walked the other way, went to his apartment. No, they didn't see him for the rest of the afternoon. but Raikkonen heading back to the pits.
So is that the second place man now is Juan Pablo Montoya, but look how many cars are between him and Montoya. You've got Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, you've got a Super Aguri, a Midland, as they flash across the start-finish line. Schumacher, Montagny, Montero, Fisichella, Heidfeld, Ralf Schumacher, and then Juan Pablo Montoya. He's got 5 or 6 cars between himself and the race leader. Yeah. So Alonso's looking very comfortable here.
And just to add to the misery, I think we saw a Super Aguri pop out of the pit lane as well between him and the leader. Let's have a look. Maybe not. But Montoya then, and as they all get up and running, you know, who's really got their head into blue flags? It's a green flag scenario, look, that's waving. It's, OK, guys, off you go. But Montoya desperately needs the blue flags now.
Well, it's been an extraordinary race of turnarounds, thrills and desperations and frustrations, always guaranteed in Monte Carlo. A lot of frustration for Jenson Button, a lot of frustration for Rosberg and Coulthard and Fisichella, who were on strategies that were compromised by Rubens Barrichello, who's played it tactically absolutely brilliantly. He didn't have speed in the car in the early part of the race. His car was very heavy with fuel. He just managed it as best he could. They were all tucked up behind him and their strategies were ruined. But the great news is for Rubens Barrichello, who just turned 34 years of age, that he is about to get a podium from the looks of things for Honda. Having had a terrible start to the season, he is currently running in 3rd place. He's only stopping once this afternoon, and so that's it for him. He's set fair. Trulli is behind him in 4th place. Christian Klien and David Coulthard for the Red Bull Racing team have driven brilliantly here this weekend. Need to stop again this afternoon. That looks like Rosberg off the racetrack. So Michael Schumacher is going to get some points here, I think, for 7th at least.
Yeah, the safety car was perfect for Michael because all of that time he lost earlier on in the race behind one stoppers, and Rosberg getting offline in the Anthony Nose on the final turn. This is the 2 Red Bulls passing that scene, and well, Superman returns, but that's going to be a big scrap now between Klien and Coulthard. Of a 78-lap race. Did they fuel it? And there's a forlorn Kimi Raikkonen still trying to find his way back.
It's a very lonely Kimi Raikkonen who makes his way back to through the tunnel. He's walking slowly. He's not in any great hurry to get back and face the team. Definitely a chance of a win here this afternoon. At the moment, Alonso has used the advantage of all that lap traffic between himself and Montoya brilliantly. He's 12 seconds. I think the effect of yesterday and Michael Schumacher will have on Schumacher's own thoughts of whether he carries.
Fastest man on the circuit, but only by a fraction from Michael Schumacher, who's down in 7th place. He's got a lot of time to find, but he's got a big gap in front of him. We're going to now see the true pace of that Ferrari. I've been watching it. Is that a Red Bull?
It's Klien, Christian Klien. Pulls into the pit, so we have yet another retirement from 5th place, Christian Klien. Cruel luck. Yeah,
the engine's working, so the throttle's working, therefore not hydraulics. I suspect a gearbox problem. Box full of neutrals, it seems, for Christian Klien, and that releases Coulthard. And Michael Schumacher then up to P6. Fisichella is just behind Schumacher. Trying to get my head round how Fisichella ended up so far back down the field. He obviously pitted a lap too late. They pitted Alonso first, so Fisichella must have had to go all the way around again behind the safety car and then pit. So Fisichella lost out heavily in those safety car conditions. Drive-through penalty for Jacques Villeneuve. Overtaking under the safety car was the crime there, so and a big one too, that is. So Villeneuve then penalised.
Have a guess who the fastest man on the...
Thrashing the car too hard. What are we looking at here then? So Heidfeld looks like he's about to be lapped. It's truly Coulthard. Michael Schumacher.
Rare indeed. There is Kimi Raikkonen. He's not even gone back to the paddock. He's got his shirt off. He's on his boat, which has a splendid name, One More Toy. He's with some of his best mates from Finland who've consumed their own weight in champagne and beer while he's been off the pop all weekend. And I bet he fancies a drink now after the huge disappointment as one of the Midlands nerfs the back of one of the Super Aguris, giving him a little tap. It's Montagny getting a tap there from, I think, Christian Albers. It's Schumacher pushing hard. Looks like he's going to pick up 5 points for 4th place, which is a welcome boost.
It is, but it's not over yet because Barrichello and Michael Schumacher and Fisichella, and this was the point, a replay then of Alonso letting that squabble go through. Fisichella doesn't appear to have the pace to do anything other than follow Michael Schumacher. He's now 3 seconds adrift. But that was the point where the leader said, I don't need to get involved in your scrap, off you go.
So from the start, Alonso mid to low 1 minute 15 range, and really going at it. Tremendous scrap between them. Michael Schumacher was stuck up behind Jenson Button in 16th place in the early stages, having started this race from the pit lane. Alonso managed to stay ahead through the first round of pit stops, but his performance in the middle stint was not the same as in the early stint, and it gave Raikkonen a real belief that he could win this race here this afternoon. Also Mark Webber, who was right up there as well. So the three of them were very close together as we approached half distance. Traffic put a bit of a spanner in the works for Webber, dropping him back slightly, and he then had an engine failure, removing him from the equation. As the marshals were clearing his car out of the way, a safety car was deployed, and under the safety car, Kimi Raikkonen suffered what appeared to be an engine after looked to have been compromised on his race strategy in the early stages, but Red Bull Racing switched his strategy, put him onto a one-stopper. Despite losing ground behind the heavy Barrichello in the early stages, he's fought his way through, and he now finds himself in 4th place. So a number of different candidates later in the proceedings for you to consider for driver of the day. And as always in Monaco, a lot of thrills, a lot of excitement, and a lot of disappointment in equal measure shared throughout the field.
I think we're on board with Massa chasing Ralf Schumacher, 8th and 9th. Barrichello still easing up towards the back of Coulthard, closely pursued by Michael Schumacher and Fisichella. So we'll watch that one for a showdown in the final few laps, but you'd imagine Coulthard ought to be able to be wide enough to keep them at bay. But Michael's absolutely flying. It confirms completely that he would have been part of today's front-running race, and he not have been put at the back of the grid, but that's what they did. And he at least is going to have a bit of damage limitation in terms of World Championship points, James, if he can come home 5th or 6th. I'm surprised that front wing hasn't fallen off Coulthard's car. It got quite a knock, didn't it? Although it was upwards rather. In difficult conditions, and Michael is still fancying a chance at Rubens, but got himself out of shape. Coulthard P3. Barrichello recovers from a drive-through in 4th. Michael Schumacher, damage limitation, 5th from the pit lane. And Fisichella, don't quite know what happened to him. I think we think he got really double shuffled in the safety car situation. Fisichella comes home 6th. Heidfeld 7th then. And Ralf Schumacher creeping into the points for Toyota after the problems of Jarno Trulli. Trulli just a few laps away from a podium. Great race.
Great race, a great Monte Carlo Grand Prix. And Michael Schumacher there, taking the waves of the crowds and hoping that he will make everyone forget about what happened yesterday. Certainly all eyes now are on the race winner, Fernando Alonso, who extends his championship lead. He's now got 64 World Championship points. Michael Schumacher, by my calculations, has got 43. So he's 21 points up on Schumacher, and Raikkonen, of course, didn't score here this afternoon. He's down on 27. So no wonder Alonso is looking happy. So there's your classification. Not at all the results many people would have expected. Even if you checked in with us 45 minutes or an hour ago, you wouldn't have expected that to be your top 8. And where's your driver of the day coming from today?
The drivers that didn't finish, it's got to be Webber. I thought he did a sensational job for Williams. And the drivers that did, I'll give it to DC. I think he's kept his head under pressure and put in a very solid... He's the man that's really outperformed his car there this afternoon. Reliability issue. Raikkonen was flying too. Some great drives out there, actually. Really, some truly great drives. Super impressed and overawed, really, by some of the skills that the early pace of this Grand Prix, James, was just sensational. Trying to imagine just hanging it out like that for an hour and not making errors as though top 4 did early on is almost beyond belief.
Yeah, Alonso, Raikkonen, Mark Webber, all absolutely flat out. There's confirmation of the Drivers' Championship situation. A unique podium here, of course. Prince Albert ready to present the winner's trophy. The drivers get to do just like they used to do in the old days, to drive up onto the main straight. No Parc Fermé collections and disappearing into dark rooms to be weighed here. this is where tradition still counts for a great deal. And just as many of the great drivers like Sterling Moss and Juan Fangio have done in the past, Fernando Alonso joins the list of drivers who park up outside the royal box as the winner of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. A box he very badly wanted to tick, having won his home Grand Prix in Barcelona. He now wins the most prestigious race of them all. A hug there from Montoya, who's won this race in the past. David Coulthard has won it in the past as well. He's always brilliant around here. He lives in Monte Carlo. He drives down these streets every morning to go and buy his brioche from the local boulangerie. And he has got his first podium for Red Bull Racing and their first podium in Formula One. Incredible intensity of driving today in the early stages for Alonso. Able to just take it a little bit more easy in the second and third stints, particularly after the threat from Raikkonen and Webber was eliminated by poor reliability.
Fellow Spanish speakers there having a catch-up, comparing notes. So often you don't know what's gone on in the race as a driver. You get to the end and all they want to do is watch it on the replay to understand all of the things that happen. Maybe they caught glimpses of it here and there as they came across incidents, but you probably have an idea of about 10 or 15% of what actually went on through the entire Grand Prix as a driver.
The winner then, Fernando Alonso, kisses the trophy. Another one for his cabinet. It's win number 12 for him. Look at David Coulthard, he's got a Superman cape on. Princess Caroline presents Juan Pablo Montoya with his trophy. He'll be very pleased with that. Good afternoon's work, and here's Superman. David Coulthard, the irreverent Red Bull, as always. Having the final laugh on the podium.
There's a clause in his contract that says the team can't do anything that brings him into disrepute, and that is close to breaking it as far as I'm concerned. Luckily he hasn't got the red pants on.
Flavio almost missed the party, just makes it in time. Get a bit of heat for that, talking through his own national anthem when the Spanish press pointing to the Michelin hat there. Edouard Michelin, the president of Michelin, died tragically on Friday, and this win I think being dedicated to him by Fernando Alonso as the French national anthem rings out. fantastic Grand Prix here in Monte Carlo. Brilliantly won by Fernando Alonso. So much to talk about. Looks like we're not going to have any champagne in tribute to Edouard Michelin. Or maybe we are. What's the etiquette here? Herbie Blash there.
I think it's a bottle of champagne for the boys, but not to be sprayed around.
Absolutely right. It will be going to the mechanics. So, in tribute to Edouard Michelin, as I say, who died on Friday, no spraying of the champagne. A wonderful, wonderful Grand Prix here in Monaco. It was win for Alonso, bust for Raikkonen and Webber.
Fly, Superman, fly, vola!